Hollywood, do you need to accept everyone's accent?
Five,
Four.
uno.
Paulie back here on the Latino Slant. Before we begin this really interesting talk, I would love for you to do one thing for me. Subscribe. There's so many of you guys that are not subscribed yet to this day. It's unbelievable. It's inconceivable. Come on now. Let's get married. Hit that subscribe button. All right. What do we have for today? Well, we have a very interesting opinion column from the IndieWire in regards to actors' accents and should they be able to play any role. I have some thoughts. So I want you to watch this whole video. I want to go through this and then I'm going to give my opinions. But let's get to this story here from the Slant Studios. How cool is that? So cool. We're in double. All right. So, what do we have here? From IndieWire, from Blonde to Star Wars, Hollywood needs to accept actors' accents. Very interesting. Very interesting. Let's make myself super small and let's hit this story. Diego Luna and Maria Bakalova talked to IndieWire about a lingering bias in the industry that has less to do with what people look like than how they sound. Last week, I was prepared to devote this column to the backlash over Ana de Armas apparently retaining her Cuban accent in the trailer for Blonde. But the Warner Brothers Discovery decision to cancel Batgirl sent me in another direction. The delay was well timed. The discourse over which actors get to play certain roles, specifically within the Latino community, gained another wrinkle when John Leguizamo lashed out at the news that James Franco had been cast as Fidel Castro. Yes, and of course you guys know that we have, I'd say now, about 3 to 4 videos just on that subject. Every update, every angle, the James Franco, Fidel Castro movie, and then producers going to war with John Leguizamo. We have covered it. Please check that out. Okay, let's continue. All right. Addressing the nuances of a sensitive cultural landscape is tricky when these mini scandals demand case-by-case assessment. It's not tricky. That's common sense. That's how you handle it. That's how you handle it. What you don't do is throw it all into one barrel and freak out about it. Just case by case, as with life. Most people haven't seen Blonde yet, including me. So let's get the writer here, because this is a column. Eric Cohn. This is a column that he is giving. Most people haven't seen Blondie. I haven't seen it yet. Who's to judge the end result? And yes, Franco looks like Castro, but Leguizamo points out the dearth of opportunity for Latino actors. No questions, actors pretend to be different people from themselves. The tension in these stories stem from another fact. Actors with non-American accents remain stigmatized in Hollywood, even among those who find success with them. De Armas and Leguizamo were unavailable for comment, but Leguizamo had plenty to add on his Instagram. We've covered that as well. Interesting. Let's keep going. A few weeks back, Jamie Lee Curtis inadvertently slagged De Armas, her Knives Out co-star, when she said that during her first meeting with the actress, she assumed, because she had come from Cuba, that she had just arrived, and made an assumption that she was an inexperienced, unsophisticated young woman. Yes, we covered that as well. That is just plain ignorance on Jamie Lee. All is forgiven. But this is territory that is. Here, let me bust out the slant stream here. All right, this is territory that is not unfamiliar. From immigrant Latinos to US Latinos who have over time and over generations have lost their accent but still speak Spanish. This type of ignorance is not a no. I myself don't take it as people who are, you know, mean or racist or whatever. They just don't know. So it's up to the slant to let them know. All right, what do we have here? Let's bring it on back to the story. What do you guys think? What do you guys think so far? And I'll have the link to the story in the description. Fun times. Fun times. Okay. That bias towards accents, conscious or otherwise, has lingered in the industry for years. When I was very young, like 20 years ago, there was a whole conversation about losing your accent. Mexican actor Diego Luna told me this week they used to call it neutralizing, as if it was something you can just get rid of. It was a fear of misunderstanding. And let me just tell you, yes, but also too, this went for actors who were American who had thick accents, whether it be from Boston or the South. There's stories of how, and there's techniques, classes upon classes, everything to get rid of those accents for a standard American accent. Julia Roberts is one example. She had to go through that just to get rid of her. I believe she had a heavy Southern accent. But if you're coming from also just to another country where you're learning or don't even know the language, that gets a little dicey. And it really depends on the character. Luna called me from Mexico City after completing a media blitz to promote the upcoming Disney Star Wars Andor, where he reprises his role as a rebel he first played in Rogue One. The fantasy context of the movie and the series meant that he was able to get around any practical questions about the way he spoke. It wasn't a decision to keep my accent. If they hire me, I come with it, he said. But when they cast me, it's clearly sending a message that they're trying to represent a similar world to the one we experience, where people talk differently and they have a rich cultural and language diversity. Okay, here is where I part a little ways with my Mexico City hermano. And it's actually a praise. This is coming from me. I've seen actors who are from other countries act in their own language, and it's nothing compared to their English performances. It's just they're completely different people. And I know a lot of people who didn't connect with Diego's Cassian Andor performance. I liked it. I know he's always capable of a lot more, but I also think that the language, it's just different. It's just different, and he's completely dynamic in a different way when he is acting in Spanish. So is Banderas. So is Bardem. It is what it is, right? But to come here and to perform in English on a high level, I do commend them. Okay. So let us go back to this. In the years since Luna and his pal Gael Garcia Bernal broke out with Y Tu Mamá También, which I highly recommend that you guys see, the pair have gotten past the pressure to alter the accents for the sake of better jobs. I still hear about some projects that think in that very old-fashioned way. I know they're around, but it doesn't feel like they're the majority now. I think everyone talks to me I think everyone that talks to me is sensible on this. I don't argue that. Luna argued against another trope that stigmatizes accents, the tendency to have actors speak in accented English in situations where characters should do the realistic talking in their native language. He says, I did many of those, but would not do them again. Let's make sure that when they are talking at home, talking to their kids, that they also speak the language that would be speaking there. I don't want to make anyone feel bad for this, but let's put it in my perspective. I want to be respectful to the story and the context of the characters. All right. So, Diego, now you're starting to get into territory of storytelling. So, if you want an authentic story, then you're going to have to do that yourself, promote, pitch it to the studios. But if you're coming in as an actor, then you go into different territory as far as the tendency to have actors speak in accented English in situations where the character should realistically talk in their native language. Besides what I said, now we're also talking about, well, who is the audience? You're assuming that the audience is going to be bilingual to the story, whatever those languages are. And if that's not the audience, case in point with Prey, that was recently on, fantastic movie. They're going to speak the majority, 90 to 95% of it in English, because that's their market, with some native language sprinkled over. There's many examples of this where they'll hint at who they are, and then they'll just go to English because that's what the market is. And if that's not the case, then Gladiator would be spoken in several different languages, etc., etc. Now, the ones that are more historically accurate, that go for historical accuracy, like Apocalypto, even though it's an action adventure and there were some historical inaccuracies, that they did get the language down. So yeah, Diego, it's a dance, and depending on the material and on the characters, I'm with you to a certain degree. So this is great insight, and Luna is next asked about the Leguizamo affair. Now, what I will say, I'm gonna give you another insight at the end of this article, because I've been commenting the whole time, but it begs to be commented. This is a very everyday challenge, like I said at the beginning, that actors have to deal with. Okay, let's get back to this story. Right on, right on. As for Leguizamo's complaint over the Franco casting, Luna was reticent to weigh in. It's dangerous because there are two parts of the conversation here, he said. You should be able to explore and get yourself into whatever challenge you want to try. That's what acting is about. But this particular case is another thing. It's the amount of opportunities a community has to work. I don't think where you come from should restrict you from anything in terms of the challenges you can try. Luna, who stars with Bernal in an upcoming Spanish language Hulu series, La Máquina, is optimistic for international actors about the industry's direction. You can't generalize and say the whole industry is doing this to us, he said. The industry is full of very sensible people I meet every day and try to transform things and make better. The debate is getting richer and much more interesting. I experience the change every day. Otherwise, I would be doing theater in Mexico and not even bother. And I'm gonna jump over and let you read the Maria Bakalova part. I want to get to what she says in regards to Ana de Armas's Marilyn Monroe. She was excited by the hints of Cuban in de Armas's Marilyn Monroe from the Blonde trailer. I think Ana de Armas is an incredibly talented actress, and that's what should matter, she said. It sounds like she has her natural accent, and it should be about the feeling you get from the performance. There are accents in the world that have been kept from us, including my personal one. For so long, having the chance to play somebody and just do your best at it is a phenomenal achievement. And God, this is a really great story. It's almost done. Really great column. The writer says, I grew up. Let's get myself a little bigger. The writer says, I grew up in an immigrant household where accents were part of the day-to-day experience. If you did too, then you probably find this conversation self-evident. Yes, accents should be threaded into storytelling in filmmaking and TV, regardless of whether they have been assigned a specific reason for being part of a plot. Diversity is not just a question of what people look like. I have to disagree. I have to disagree. Because it's one thing for, again, the story, to hold our attention and for us to believe that, okay, this person who has an accent can do this, do that, which is great. It's another thing to demand that we change our ear, we change our perception, especially of someone like a Marilyn Monroe, just so we can make that actor feel better. That's not how the way it works. You got to make us suspend our disbelief. We're paying you to entertain us. We're not paying you for us to accept, your diversity rhetoric. Because accents are a funny thing, man. Now, I could be completely wrong, and I'm going to see blonde. And from what they're saying is that her Cuban accent shouldn't matter. It's her performance. And in the theater, I would agree, but it's a film where she's playing Marilyn Monroe. No, you gotta give me Marilyn Monroe. So if this makes me, I don't even, that's just how I feel. I don't care what it makes me. It's just, that's just real, This is yet extended performances often remain ostracized even when they find success. This stems from deep-seated biases. Yeah, if that makes me biased, then so be it. Ones that many filmmakers and industry gatekeepers may harbor without realizing, simply because it's a departure from the world they know. No, it's not departure, man. The world I know is it's truth. It's Elvis Presley. It's Marilyn Monroe. That's like saying someone like me, who's like a third generation Mexican American, can go and play Emiliano Zapata with no accent, but perform him, wow him. No, no way, man, no way. That's not how it works. Maybe in the theater with a non-traditional casting, or then you do something different, like a fantasy or a what if play on a historical character. Then you have leave. But yeah, very interesting. And then they go on to talk about Leslie Grace and Batgirl, and we won't get into that. I will say one last thing. Okay. One last thing that they didn't bring up, and I have some knowledge on from being around the business and from friends of years and years of auditions, is that the U.S. Latino actor not only has to speak perfect English at times, or has to put on an affected accent for roles that they're going out for. So there's so many challenges and hurdles that if you're an actor getting into the business you never even thought of that you would have to face, that the more insight the better. Now those actors that have to, let's say, let me give you a case in point. So they sound like me with pretty good English, standard English, but yet maybe look like a cholo or a gang member, right? Odds are that's all they'll ever go for. And then they'll have to, put on that accent for the role. I know a lot of actors that are trying to break from that because they don't want to just be pigeonholed in that role. So, this is a fascinating subject. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's why we're the Latino Slant. And if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you are. Put those alerts on. Thank you guys so much. Wherever you're at, keep your slant muy fuerte. Paz.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The slant? Yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version. All right, Paulie, let's